Good morning. It was crazy windy last night. We've had a couple of days here where it has just been really windy, really rainy. So I have been coming out just to do like bare minimum stuff, but nothing that I wanted to drag a camera out for. So it's been getting quite a mess here just because the wind has just been blowing everything around. I need to learn to be tidier so that it doesn't get the chance to sort of take whatever you've left lying around and distribute it across the land. So there's been a slight dip in the wind now, so I thought I would get a cup of tea, grab the camera and go for a little walk around and assess the damage out in the garden. I'm a bit worried, but let's see how it looks. So if it gets too windy for me to chat to you out there, then I guess I'll pick this up at a later date, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me and we can see how it's looking. When I've been out to check on things out here, I've actually been quite pleasantly surprised that down here, where the veggies are, it's actually quite sheltered. I mean, where I am up here, less so. But when I come down here, we seem to be like in the windbreak. So most of the stuff at ground level has actually not done too badly. Where I've noticed we have had a problem is over there by the corn. Over there by the corn, because that bit is just that bit higher and it just seems to catch the bruise a bit worse. So let's go over there and see how it looks. Well, the pumpkins don't seem to mind. Got some flowers coming. I keep trying to train them a little bit so that they don't completely take over the corn. I want them to just kind of lay alongside the edges to keep this grass back, but we'll see how that goes. As you can see, there's a fair amount of grass growing in this bed. I need to come in here and do another weed, but as you can see, a lot of this corn has just been flattened by the breeze. You can see which way it's coming over because we've got a The problem is, while it's still breezy like this, if I try to do anything about this in terms of like putting them upright, giving them more support, they don't have a chance to get settled in again. So I think realistically I'm going to leave them flat. We've got a couple more days of this level of wind, and then hopefully come out and do some damage control after that and just see what survives. I think at the moment, if I'm trying to like firm them back into the ground, they're just going to end up getting knocked over again. But that does teach me that I need to put something here to protect from this wind coming across this way for next year, or even for later in this season, because I suppose the bigger this corn gets, if it does survive, the more it's going to catch wind as the season goes on. So even just something temporary. This is a 4-metre wide bed, so even if I just put something that size literally here just to take the edge off of the wind here, I think that's going to be a good idea. So I need to look at what we've got lying around that I can make a little wind barrier out of. But anywho, let's go see how the rest of things are doing. I've not done an update for a while, so it's worth just having a little look in, see how things are looking. So I've talked a bit about my decision to keep the grass in here, which all in all I don't hate so far, but what I have learned is if I'm going to do that, then I need to leave the gaps between the beds wide enough for the mower, because you can see these ones where it's not wide enough and I've just kind of let them go, and that's causing a problem. So I can drive the mower down here, but it doesn't go through here, and that is the difference. But otherwise, here's my San Marzanos, and they are quite fabulous actually. They're looking in there. Dense, very dense. Now, I had a bit of a disaster with the tomatoes. I'll tell you about that in a second. I'm pretty sure what I've done here, I put these archways up over this walkway because I thought how fabulous would it be if we could have beans growing up those. And I'm pretty sure what I've done is put dwarf beans at the base of this archway. I'm not sure how I've managed it, because I'm fairly sure up until this point when I put these in, I'd only sown climbing beans, but these beans ain't climbing, so I think I've got a load of dwarf beans at the base of a climbing frame. Oh, I've just noticed that this whole archway is fallen in. Oh dear, okay, there we go, that catches the wind too. Then we've got some more tomatoes lining up in here. The brassica cage, we come down here, it's doing really well actually. There's nothing flying around in there. So as you can see, it's all coming along really well in there. I've got some weeds I need to get in there and sort. As I say, I've been bare minimuming so far for the last couple of weeks, just because it's been such a bloody nightmare out here. But there you go, you can see our Tuscan cabbage is coming along great. These are some purple sprouting broccoli. Then you can see a Calabrese broccoli in there, coming along really well. Yeah, I'm going to have to go and grab that soon before it opens up. And then we've got some cabbages along here, really looking good. Now the peppers are still clinging on. I mean, they are trying to survive from where their growth was so stunted from putting them out here in the wind, but they are trying to live, but I'm not particularly hopeful that we're going to get anything out of there. Now, as you can see, we've got a nice big long row of tomatoes along here. I've just put some beans in to fill that space on the outside. Then we've got some onions, some red onions coming in here, and a courgette. Now, believe it or not, in my years of gardening, this is the first courgette I've grown. The reason is that I don't really like them. I'm just not really a squash kind of gal. Same with the pumpkins. I put those in just because I've never grown pumpkins before, because I've never had in-ground space, so it wasn't really a thing that was on my radar even. But since I do now, I thought I would give it a go and find a way to cook with them that I like. It's probably not fair to say I don't like them, I just don't like the way that I've had them in the past. So here we go, I've got a couple of courgette plants, which hopefully means I'll be drowning in courgettes, and I can work out a way to like them. And if I don't, then fine, I just won't grow them again. I was never going to grow them in when I had limited space, because I would be giving up space for something that I know that I like. But now that I've got practically unlimited space, because there's only the two of us here, we're on 2.5 acres at the moment, so in terms of gardening space, I've got all the space I could possibly want. So I figure, why not grow me some courgettes and see if I can find a way to make them delicious. I'm just watching with so even with all the wind, this tomato's putting on loads of fruit, which is good. Hopefully we'll have lots of tomatoes to be cooking with. Now the coriander went straight to seed, but the bees seem to quite like it, so I'm just leaving it in there. We've had all the lettuce one could possibly want to eat. Most of that's going to seed now, which is fine. And here you can see down this row of tomatoes, which are coming along really great. I've been doing this Florida weave, which I thought with this level of wind might just, not make it, but it's doing surprisingly well, to be honest with you. I've not had too many casualties. We've had a couple of snapped branches, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it's gone. I popped a nasturtium in here just because I had one, and I thought, hey ho, something for the pollinators, and obviously it's completely taken over. But that's fine. The celery is kind of coming up through it, and anything that doesn't make it is just going to have to go ahead and not make it. Borage, same deal, put him in here and he's gone, thanks for the space, taken over completely, so this bed will probably all just be borage and nasturtiums next year, knowing how much they're going to self-seed. The onions are coming along stunningly. Look at those babies. Yeah, really chuffed with those. Now I did pop in a few chickpea plants just because I wanted to see how feasible it was that I would be able to grow my own chickpeas and whether or not it'd be worth giving them proper space next year. All in all, they've looked after themselves pretty much and they seem quite happy, so it's all grand. The peas are coming to an end now. I think what's left on there I might just leave and let them dry on this plant and save them for seed next year, because we have eaten an awful lot of peas and there's an awful lot of them in the freezer now, so that's probably enough. This is some herbs. The parsley's gone absolutely nuts and pretty much taken over everything else. This is the perpetual spinach, which has about gone now. Chives are still poking through. Sweet rocket. It's all looking good here. So the potatoes are taking over the broad bean bed, which I'm fine with. I think I'm going to leave what's left of the broad beans same as the peas and keep them for seed for next year. These peas never quite made it onto their support that I built for them here, so they've just become an entangled pile of pea, which is interspersed with stinging nettles. So that's not been a fun experience. I think I'll have to live and learn on that one. Now this is a bit of an abandoned bed. I'm okay with it. Just let it be. I'm going to fill it, I promise. And then we've got more tomatoes gone in over here. Okay, so let's talk about the tomato situation. If you watched my video a couple of weeks back, I talked about wind and how much everything was being made difficult by the wind here. My cucumbers had just not coped at all, and my peppers were on their way out. I'm going to head inside because of wind. So I had grown cucumbers and peppers outside in my previous garden, but my previous garden was on the south coast of England. It was completely walled in a city, and so completely protected. We were also less than a mile from the sea, which we are again here, but we are a lot further north and a lot more exposed. The things I got away with in the old garden with regards to wind and exposure are different to what I can get away with here. There are definitely upsides to being out in proper rural space. The ecosystem here, like, I have not really dealt with pests at all here, but I'll make a different video about those things that have surprised me maybe, but just to say that, you know, those things that you think I've grown those outside, they'll be fine. It's not quite how it works everywhere, so you've got to get to know where you are and what you're working with in your microclimate. So I had to either accept basically that I just couldn't grow things like peppers and cucumbers, or I had to do something about it. I mean, in an ideal world, that would mean like a greenhouse or a nice big polytunnel where I can just grow those things and not worry about it. But it's not on the cards this year. Maybe next year or the year after or the year after. We'll see how things go. So I needed either to not grow those things, or I needed to come up with a cheaper temporary solution. And I've gone with the cheaper temporary solution, and I'll show you what it is. Okay, I'm going to close these up because I'm slightly worried that they are going to take off. But, hang on, I can't multitask. Ooh, okay. There we go. Okay, I'm back inside because you definitely can't hear me out there. Okay, so there we go. I've got a couple of temporary plastic, small, cheapo greenhouses. I don't know how they're going to do. They've coped well so far. I don't know if you could see that when I just popped in there. They are weighted down with concrete blocks on all of the sides. I do try and keep them closed when it's windy, but it's trying to balance between it being really warm and it being windy. I've put them up against the stables here because I think that's the most sheltered, most possible sheltering I can give them. But it has given me the chance to have somewhere to put the rest of the peppers. I put half of the peppers out and I kept half back because I just wanted to see how they would do outside. So I've still got half and they're in. I mean, they're not doing great in there, to be honest, but I have to give them a bit of time. I think I'm going to run out of time with them, and hey ho, that is what it is. But I should still have time to do some cucumbers, and I've started some more in there, so we'll see how that goes and see if that gives me a chance. But how that leads into the tomato conversation is that Nigel and his friend put those greenhouses together for me, and being wonderfully helpful, they put my tomato seedlings into them for me out of the cold frame and into those. This was a few weeks back now, and unfortunately they weren't individually labelled, so I had a system. So I knew what they were, and then only one in each grouping had to be labelled, but they just got moved in onto the shelves in there randomly, which wouldn't be a problem if they were all determinate or indeterminate, but there was a selection of San Marzanos which are determinate, and then a collection of various things that are indeterminate. So I've kind of been a bit stumped on how to manage it, so I've ended up just putting them out in rows where I can then add them to the Florida weave system, or I can just not, and I'm kind of just not pruning them in the early stages and waiting to see how they look and seeing if I can work out which is which without letting them go too far that it then becomes a problem to prune them later, but far enough that I can hopefully tell which is which, to be honest with you, it's not going great, but hey ho, I needed to get them out and I had no other way of working out what was what, so they've just had to go out and we're working it out as we go. But you know, hey ho, these things happen, and I'm sure everything will be fine. I'm slightly distracted, but look at my garlic. I hung these up probably 3 weeks ago now. They're almost completely dried out, but there's still a little bit of green, so I'll leave them until it's all looking dried out. But look how good they look. So I've been using the ones that I didn't think would dry out very well. Oh, and it's been fabulous having my own homegrown garlic. Very much enjoying it. So there you go, there's an update for you on how the garden is looking. I'm pleasantly surprised, really. I mean, there's obviously been a few casualties with regards to wind, but considering this is my first year growing here, and you know, we barely saw summer last year when we moved in, so we didn't really know what it was going to be like. I'm pretty happy with how it's gone. We're eating loads of food out of the garden, and I'm learning a lot of valuable lessons. So I will keep you updated with how it goes, and I'll walk around the food forest in the next couple of days whenever I get it. It's definitely more exposed up there, so I will have to wait for the wind to die down a bit more if I want to talk to you up there, and give you an update on how that's looking as well. But all in all, I think the progress is going pretty well. So I need to go and tidy up the land now, because where I've just left like pots and bits and bobs like that, compost bags out on the land, it's all just everywhere now. So I need to go around and do a little collection and tidy things up a little bit, because it's getting a bit tatty here. And we've got a lot of guests coming in the next couple of months, so I want to get it all looking as nice as I possibly can. All right, cheers guys.